Meeting for rezoning the golf course, Measure E. Some of the committee chairmen are here. We're all wearing green shirts. We did. John Hidahl is John right here. Wayne Haug. Me, Jim Pridemore. Terry Crumpley is not here. She will be. Jeff Baker is in the back. If anybody needs a shirt, Jeff is the man. Thank you. Christine Berry, she's back there, ready to collect her. Yeah, her shirt's in the wash.
In the wash.
And Anita Fonte, you'll see her walk around the neighborhood, and the rest of us also. So, what I'd like to do is, in this meeting, I want to keep it as tight as we can. I want to review the agenda, ask for concurrence and changes. We have a timekeeper, Lori. She's got a little yellow card. When the time gets to be 1 minute before your time is up, she flashes it. She did that to me just now. And then there's a red card that says time to go. We have a recorder, Deborah Simon, and she doesn't have to, you really only have to record during the brainstorming session. And a facilitator, we just want to keep on topic, so we kind of self-facilitate here. If we get off topic, the timekeeper will let us know, and then we politely say close it down. We wanted you to sign in, which I think most people have, and then we have these donations. 6:30, we're doing this welcome thing. 6:35, we're reviewing the agenda. 6:40, we're going to talk about Measure E and get you all up to date on that. 7:10, we want to go over the conceptual vision for the golf course, if that comes to fruition. Then we'll have a little time. You'll be brought up to date on where we are from past planning and also future vision. And then we'll go 8:20, we'll do the next steps. 8:30, general Q&A, and 9 o'clock we'll adjourn. And so after each 30-minute or 20-minute session, we'll have Q&A. So I prefer if you could hold your questions until then. Are there any questions? Any problems? Anybody have a problem with the agenda?
Is Greg going to speak?
No, Greg Prada is from the EID board, and he wanted to share a little bit with us at around 8:30. For, I think, 8 minutes we agreed to, didn't we, Greg? He wanted 10. Okay, so next up is Wayne.
Good evening. Did everyone get the handout that I had available at the back that shows exactly what you're going to get in the mail? Hopefully at the end of this week and definitely by the end of next week. It's has a ballot statement on the very front. Has everybody got that? Everyone can see that, I hope. I'm going to flip to the ballot statement. Okay, great. Anyway, we all have page 1, first page of that handout, advisory vote only. Should the El Dorado County Board of Supervisors rezone the approximately 100 acres of the former executive golf course in El Dorado Hills from its current land use designation as open space recreation to a designation that allows residential housing and commercial development on the property? That's what you're voting on. And if you all got your handout, I've already marked it for you. It says no. And the reason, of course, we're going to talk about why we just need to say no. Now, did anyone see Channel 3's presentation on Measure E? It was a couple of weeks ago, and actually the people they interviewed, the majority, if not all of them, understood that this ballot's about voting no. First, we have the impartial analysis. Can you go to that one there? This is what the county council wrote. Pretty self-explanatory. It says an advisory vote of yes is the district's voters' opinion in favor of rezoning the property. An advisory vote of no is the voters' opinion against rezoning, and of course, we're supporting that latter opinion. On the next page of that handout, which would be actually page 2, well, it'll be the third piece of paper in your handout. You've got the argument in favor of Measure E, and I would draw your attention to the third paragraph. It basically sums it up. The purpose of this advisory vote is to allow a clear message from the voters in El Dorado Hills CSD to the Board of Supervisors that the property not be rezoned from its current open space recreational to residential and commercial development. That is a no vote. Now, the interesting part of what you'll get in your actual sample ballot is the argument against Measure E. The reason I keep emphasizing that we want to vote no is some people are confused.
That's confusing to put that message in there.
And the argument, now we go to the argument against, Jim, the next one, argument, okay, go back, argument against Measure E. That's on your third page. The capitalized statement that they have right off the bat, Measure E has zero power to do anything and is a waste of tax dollars. Well, I really do beg to differ with that. Measure E is necessary to persuade the Board of Supervisors that preservation of the El Dorado Hills Golf Course as open space is a high resident priority. Then their argument, which again states a waste of money. The same impact could be had if we all talked to our supervisor and told them what we wanted to do. Well, is there a supervisor here tonight? You were invited, supervisor. Can't talk to him. Well, I don't know if you'll listen. But anyway, this vote will give them a strong message that we don't want the golf course rezoned. The phone calls, and then just an example of what happens if you call your supervisor and say, let's do something, the apartment houses that are going in south of the freeway. Planning Commission recommended redesign it, do something else. Well, and I think the one at APAC said the same thing. Anyway, the Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 to go ahead and do it. So then what happened? They're being sued right now. The Board of Supervisors has trouble listening to some of the things we would like to have done. Again, this vote hopefully will send that strong message. It's the first step that we don't want to rezone, have that golf course rezoned. The argument against, I'm still on it because it's a very interesting argument against. They say that if the statement passes, if this measure passes, this is reading from their argument against, other areas of El Dorado County will have similar proposals, wasting even more money that could have gone to improve county services. Anyway, when the Board of Supervisors really responds appropriately to what we would like done, instead of what the developers are trying to push through on us, the voter major and other subsequent lawsuits can be avoided. The only issue, or only comment I really had on that paragraph is, despite their arguments, they do come to the proper conclusion, which is voting no on Measure E sends a message against wasteful ballot box politics. Well, Again, I'm with the chamber on this one, vote no. Again, and more of their, they go down and say that the general plan is being messed with by our quote vote. Well, with all due respect, the existing general plan emphasizes the fact that we want open space and we want to preserve open space. It's actually in the reference goal in 7.6 of the open space conservation element, and objective 7.6 stresses the importance of open space. And then it would hurt El Dorado County's ability to balance growth where it is best suited. The problem I have with that statement, based upon my experiences in this county since I've been here for close to 50 years, is that the planning department seems to keep pushing the fact that everything needs to be developed in El Dorado Hills. When I moved here, there was lots of open space. Well, it's disappearing. And we have the one last centrally located piece of open space land that needs to stay that way. And that's why, again, we're saying vote no on Measure E. Then I'd like to conclude that well, again, for all the wrong reasons, this argument against, they did come to the right conclusion, and I'm asking you to join with business leaders and me and the El Dorado Hills Chamber of Commerce and vote no on Measure E. And if anyone's still confused when they read these arguments in favor and against, you really read the rebuttal to the argument against Measure E. It spells it out again, perfectly clear. Voting no supports the current land use designation and zoning of open space recreation. Voting no sends a message to the Board of Supervisors. That's what we want them to hear, that we are overwhelmingly against that rezoning. If you want to vote yes, fine, you're going to have some more houses down there. Traffic's going to be a mess. Voting yes, yeah, it's a green light. Let the developers keep running this county instead of the people that live here. Again, I urge you vote no on Measure E and keep it open space recreational. Now, the last part of your handout, the very last page, is how many people here vote absentee or are called in the mail? Yeah, a lot of us, I do too. One of the things I want to caution everybody in the past, when you do send in your absentee ballot, sign your ballot exactly the way your mailing label says. That says that's you, and they want your name exactly as it was there. Also, please, even though they passed a law that says if it's postmarked on election day, they can accept the ballot, there's still, the county says if it's not there within 3 days after election day, they're not going to count it. And my argument again is, if you're a mail-in voter, vote early, vote often, vote early, and get that in there. Again, if you came here for something other than no on E, you're in the wrong meeting. And I hope you'll support us. I know someone else will make the same spiel, but we do need money to run our campaign. We have signs that are available to take home, put on your lawn if you'd like. We have some t-shirts for sale and back. And there's some flyers that we'll also be passing out in the next couple of weeks that, again, spout no on E. So I guess that'll complete any questions. And yes, sir, right here in front.
How is open land defined in the planning document? Because
Okay.
when I think about it, open land is what it is now. And when I think about symphonies and commercial concessions and live sports fields, that doesn't sound like open land to me.
Well, open space recreation is what that zone is. And if you were here, I don't know, it's been 10 years since the golf course closed, that had a golf course on it. And actually that golf course required a special use permit under the zoning open space recreation. But open space recreational allows just what it says, for some recreational type of facility. depending on what that facility is, it may require a special use permit. Again, right now, the first step, I can't overemphasize it. This is there now. If we let Parker develop it, it's not going to come back, folks. It might come back when the Grizzly Fault, which runs right through the middle of that, drops 25 feet. That will probably clean it up again, but I'm not holding it right. Keep our fingers crossed. Anyway, we need to keep our open space. We need to have this vote. We need to let the supervisors know that we want that open space to remain just that. Yes, ma'am?
On this last page, it says there will be no polling place for your precinct for November 3rd. Does that then, and then at the bottom it says, go to any polling place, see a list on the reverse side, there's nothing there. So
Okay, now do you...
all by mail then?
Well, no, actually, do you vote by mail or?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, it won't happen. But if anyone here that goes to the voting booth to cast their ballot will have your designated place to go. And if you'll notice, there are 4 places to vote because this is a consolidated election. You got the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, which you're in right now. El Dorado Hills Library, which is over here. You all know where that is. The Rolling Hills Christian Church, which is over there by Four Seasons. And then the last one is the Latter-day Saints Church on Green Valley Road. Those are the 4 places that you can go in and stand your ballot.
So
And it'll be designated, when you get it, you'll have different, well, I would say 1/4 of all the voters that go to the polls will be spread along those 4 places.
So this statement's an error, is
Well,
that
no,
right?
it's actually what that statement is, the last statement I put on there. I'm pretty sure the elections people said that the last page is actually half, if we folded that in half, it's a 2-sided little 5.5 by 8 wide postcard that goes in the mailing ballot envelope that you get. It talks about where you can send your absentee ballot. You can go to any of the places you want to turn it in there. But it also points out where the polling places are. But that will also be stated when you get your ballot if you do vote at the poll and you're not an absentee voter. But it also points out in that statement that be sure to get your absentee ballot in on time. And I'm urging everyone not to wait till election day, even though the law has been changed to allow it to be mailed, postmarked, and good, but it still has to be received within 3 days. And I love my post office. They do an extraordinary good job, and sometimes things get lost in the mail. So, like I said, vote early, but don't vote often, just once again. Yes, sir.
So 2 questions for you. One, I'm a little bit confused here because the argument in favor of Measure E is not an argument in favor of Measure E. And secondly, can you explain a little bit relative to what an advisory vote only means?
Just what it says. This is advice. They are not, as if you read the, well, let me read the statement, the impartial analysis. This is what the county council said. It was on the 2nd page, back of the 2nd page of that handout you got. This is what you begin to mail. It says, the advisory election will not prevent the current property owners from pursuing rezoning of the property that will be processed by the county in accordance with county policy and state law. All it is advice. We're just asking, but the county is the one that has the land use authority in El Dorado Hills. The CSD doesn't have the authority. That's why the CSD is just saying, hey, the people here want that to stay open space. That's why we put this on the ballot. The question is asked, which elicits a no vote. This is where the confusion some people have. We're asking, do you want them to rezone? We don't want them to rezone. That's why we say vote no on E. That look for it?
Yes.
He is correct in that the arguments are swapped.
Well, we got any English teachers here? The English teacher can possibly, the way the statement's put down, yes, it can be confusing, but when you read the statement, the first statement, argument in favor, is stating we're in favor of a no vote. That's what we're in favor of. The argument by the poor people at Chamber of Commerce, though as an ex-member of the Chamber of Commerce, this is part of the reason I'm not there anymore, is they didn't quite understand how to say yes to a no. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think that the advisory vote also tells our Board of Supervisors that not only do people, if there's a high percentage of people who vote no, but also CSD as a group, organization, are against rezoning. So the advisory is simply that, and I think that,
Exactly.
at least it's a message.
Well, again, the argument that the chamber put on, this is a waste of money. Just call every board, the supervisor, and tell them something. Well, I've done that before, and it hasn't really gotten me too much action. And this, I think, is, again, it's a warning shot for them. Hopefully, they'll understand what it means, that they need to keep it open space.
So the question on Measure E is, should the land be zoned, yes or no? An argument in favor of Measure E should be a reason to rezone. And the argument in favor of Measure E is against rezoning. Yes. That's what they're trying to say.
Exactly. That's what they said. I mean,
So what they're speaking to is, this is an argument for and against taking a vote, not the response to the question.
Yeah.
Do you understand the difference?
well,
That's why it's confusing and it's actually fact.
and that's why I caution everybody, if you really need to understand this, I would read the rebuttal to the argument against Measure E. It spells it out quite clearly. Vote no to keep it zoned open space. If you want to see houses go down there and the developer do his thing and make the traffic on this boulevard look even worse, vote yes.
So could they have done a better job of obfuscating the whole mess?
Yeah.
Well, again, as I pointed out, it was very interesting watching that Channel 3 news clip. The people all seemed to understand that what it was about. Vote no, we don't want it rezoned from open space to commercial and housing. How about this gentleman down here in the corner?
Yeah, I just have a question. The argument in favor of is endorsed by the Community Service District. What is their role in this event?
Well, basically, if you read the full text of Measure E, which is on the back of the second page of your handout, this will be all the emailing, everything that's in the just handout will come in the mail to you the next week or so. They did it by resolution. They go through a bunch of whereases, and if you really want to get confused, all the whereases, well, these things are going to happen, yada, yada. But it finally gets down to, therefore, we want to ask this question, and that's what the vote, advisory vote is. Do you favor the old golf course being rezoned? Well, we say no. And they also say that in their first argument in favor of Measure E, it says they want a no vote.
Okay, what role does the CSD have?
They're the governing body here.
So they're the affected body that was able to put this on the ballot. There was no other affected agency.
Exactly.
So the CSD realized that there was a need in the community, a desire by the community to put the advisory vote on the ballot. And so as the affected agency, the CSD said, yes, we agree, let's go ahead and put this on the ballot.
And that was from Terry Crumbly, one of the directors on the CSD board. Thank you, Terry, for making it quite clear.
Thank you.
This lady down here is really...
Going back to the supervisors, you mentioned, really it all comes down to them, and yes, I've emailed and tried to also. What is the likelihood of crossover with District 1 coming up for re-election in the near future? Do we know where these supervisors stand? I mean,
Well, that's why we
has he
invited Mick to, Mikulaco to the meeting, but do you hear, is there a representative for him here? No?
So theoretically, none of us really know if he's for or against.
Well, hopefully when we have voters' information forums when everyone's running, but this vote, that won't happen until after the
But
vote.
then now looking in the future, we have a re-election. I personally, this is just my personal feeling, believe he will be no longer. but then somebody else will be coming in and we know who these people are. Are any of them here?
There's one.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any statement necessary.
Can I answer your question? I've talked to people that said Nick said, no, he's not going to vote. He's going to vote no.
On the
I've
record?
talked to other people that say he's going to vote yes. So there's your answer.
Well, yeah, he said that about the Elk Road extension too. So that's how he got elected. So, there you go.
Sir, you've been sitting there, please.
So, just so I understand, so the Board of Supervisors, there's only one Board of Supervisors, one member that represents this area, is that correct?
Exactly right.
What's going to encourage the other ones to not rezone it? I mean, to them, it's an advantage to
I
the
think
taxpayers.
we're gonna get to that part with our
Okay.
vision for what happens after this stays open space. What can we do with this open space to make it a viable place for all of El Dorado County,
Okay.
not just El Dorado Hills.
District 2 covers El Dorado Hills also.
Right.
But
District 4 has a small section in El Dorado Hills, that's my
we,
analysis.
we actually do have 3, but the other 2 represent how many voters? Not a whole lot.
District 2 is several hundred, probably thousand, because it's all the South Highway, most of the South Highway 50, but not all.
District 2's here.
Anyway, gentlemen, right there.
There was a part of the resolution that says that the CDC is going to reimburse the County Board of Elections for the cost. How much is that?
About 40 grand.
There's your answer.
So it's not,
Actually, that was in the argument against.
but it's,
what they
all right,
said.
we're taxpayers, I guess we all pay into the CDC through the assessments and all that, but it's not really taxpayer dollars, is it? It's our community services.
Well, our community services
It's-
district gets
it's fully
paid
funded
because
by
we pay
taxpayers.
taxes. And yes, it is our tax dollars.
All right.
Sir,
I'm not an English teacher, but I do write a lot. And I can tell you that the logic of the way that this measure is written is exactly what was said earlier. If you forget about all the whereases, what the measure really says is we request that a district election for an advisory vote. That's what the measure says.
that's what it is.
And so on November 3rd, if it's on the ballot, it's already happened. This does not request that people say whether it should be zoned or not zoned, rezoned or not rezoned. It just says whether this should be on the, and that's why these arguments,
All these arguments apply to.
these arguments are whether it should be on the ballot or not whether the.
Well, actually,
It's
they,
completely opposite, and
No.
voting no says it should not be on the ballot, which
No.
is against what you're saying.
but again, this was put on the ballot at the request of the CSD for you to vote on the issue of whether it should be rezoned. Again,
But this can't be the full text of the
The
measure.
resolution is not what's on the ballot. The
So it should be on the
resolution,
ballot.
well, again, first page you have there, to me, that question is rather quite clear.
The first page
Should,
is right.
and that's what you've done, hopefully mark no on. Everything else is where, I guess the devil is in the detail. We have a lot of things happening, and again, if anyone's still confused, I would just recommend you to read the rebuttal. The last statement on there says exactly what we're all about.
well, I would like to make clear that the resolution, I mean, then all this stuff is on the ballot, but the resolution was what the board voted on and was its reasoning as to why they decided to go ahead and have the advisory vote. Then what's on the ballot, what you're answering, is the question of the advisory vote. That right there, that is the question that's being answered. The resolution is just kind of how the CSD got there to put the vote on the ballot.
Okay, I think the problem is that you have to have all this legalese in order to do these things. And that's where things break.
This is.
Actually, what you have as a handout is the exact same thing that will be mailed to you. The only thing that will be different is for those that vote by mail, there will be an absentee ballot in there with this information. Those that vote at the poll will get exactly what you see here, along with the directions of where to go to the poll centers. Those 4 spaces. Yes, ma'am.
So simply, this is our voice telling the supervisors what we.
Exactly. And I hope
It's just our
they hear us
voice.
loud and clear.
And
that
from
we
the
don't want
CSD's
this
point of
change.
view, we had a lot of people tell us, well, not a lot of people, about 3 people, say you shouldn't waste the taxpayer money, you should talk to the Board of Supervisors. Well, a lot of us are friends with the Board of Supervisors, we talk to them all the time, we're obviously not getting out of them what we want, they're not listening to us no matter what we do. And so the CSD, we voted 4-1, and we voted to put this on the ballot, even though it's costing us $40,000. We have it budgeted in an election account, so it was already there. And we thought that because it's so important to the community, that it's worth that $40,000 to have a vote for people to have their voice heard. And then if the Board of Supervisors ignores us, then we can go to the Board of Supervisors. But once it is resolved, it's too late.
And the key is that thousands of voices are better than one voice. Yeah.
Or the 4 or 5 of the CSD, correct?
I think the thing, in my opinion, is that we're up against a machine.
Yes.
A big machine that operates like a bulldozer.
Right.
Bulldozes over the Board of Supervisors, and he's been bulldozing us as individuals because we haven't had a voice. Now's the time to get our voices together to fight the machine. It's a big order, huge order, but this is a start. And all this gobbledygook that we're trying to plow through, bottom line is, if you vote no on Measure E, you're sending your voice to the Board of Supervisors that you do not want that result. Right? And how many of you guys have been asked by Parker Development what should go on that space? Has anybody been asked? No, because they figured it all out for you. We're saying we have a different idea about it. We're trying to get to a point, our voice is loud enough so that we can say, yes, we want to make some change. We have some ideas. Let's sit down and talk about it. This is what it's all about. You know, and I hate to argue over the semantics, but the bottom line is for us, you know, people vote no, and you'll just send your voice that this should not be resolved with yes, and this is huge.
And we also still all need to send letters to the supervisor. I mean, just get an email, it's like boss1 at edh.gov, boss2 at edh.gov, through boss5 at edh.gov.
EDC, Elmore County.
Yeah, I don't know the exact address. So we all need to email the 5 Board of Supervisors, and the county clerk, I think, goes with it. I mean, because I don't think we've been out there saying much. We just run our lives and just stay busy with our lives. They don't hear from us. So they don't care about us because they never hear from us. So if we start emailing them, calling them, and they start hearing from lots and lots and lots of EDH residents, maybe that'll make a difference.
You know, we're just like you guys. The only thing is that we've been spending the time to try to make this happen. We would welcome more support through donations or just people helping spread the word. Do whatever you can.
And please take a sign with you for your front yard. We have some available in the back. Oh, what?
Yeah, the election in November, is there a timeline for this to come to vote at the board?
That's a good question. The draft EIR has not yet been released. From what I heard, it was delayed 30 days. And so then when that draft EIR gets out, then they have
60 days, nominally. It can be extended, but it's 60 days.
to comment on it. And then after the comments come in, the board makes a decision whether to accept it, to allow them to do that development. And of course, at the same time, you have to ask for the zoning change. To get a zoning change, they have to have an environmental document. That's what's being prepared by Parker right now.
Wayne, you have a question over here?
Thank you so much. I thought maybe I would develop a different shield or something. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so this may be jumping ahead in the agenda, but I want to understand some of the relevant history here.
and I want to take advantage of the CSD rep. So it was my understanding that CSD had conducted a survey.
We're gonna go through all those
Okay.
results in 2 minutes.
There you go. But it just seems relevant to the arguments we put forward in the campaign in the sense that this is a community that was willing to buy that property. And as we put together our campaign materials, which you're probably way ahead of me, but it just seems so key to communicate that as we develop materials and community.
Yeah, let's get to that and.
Yeah, great.
Did you get all your answers? I mean, I think what you said, we came up was exactly correct. Is that the way this measure is written, it's written to say if it's yes, then it goes on the ballot. That's the way it's written. This, I like this, the way it's written perfectly on the front page. I understand this one paragraph, you want to rezone or not, that's easy. But that isn't measured, that's not the way this measure is. I apologize. So I'll retract all that and I'll just say I'll vote on the paragraph.
On the advisory vote portion.
Has Parker actually presented a plan and say, we want to build 5,000 homes and another commercial district? Or are they just saying they want to rezone it and then they will present a build-out plan to the supervisors and the planning commission for approval?
Actually, they have been presenting their plan. John Hidahl,
763 units plus some commercial space, that's on the flyer in the back. If you look at the back, it gives you all the specifics. What kind of housing they're talking about, it's single-family, high-density residential, single-family, multi-density, medium-density residential.
We didn't pass out.
Did everybody get that color flyer, two-sided?
Passing out.
Oh,
we didn't actually pass
I thought that was everybody's gonna grab one. Okay, we need to pass those out at some point, because that gives you the answer to that question. It's very simple. Just highlight.
We're going to cut off the question and answers. The next section will have 10 more minutes of questions and answers. So, and then at the end we'll have a half hour. So, John Hidahl, thanks.
right. And since the question came up, I'm going to answer. We have talked to the District 2 Supervisor, Shiva Frenson. Shiva said she will support this as a no vote, do not rezone. So she has shared that with us. We also have plans to talk to Supervisor Rinaldi, since he has representation in El Dorado Hills. That's happening next week, so that he's clear of what's going on here. After this vote is taken, then our intent is to go up the hill, talk to Brian Bierkamp, who's the District 3 Supervisor, and then over the hill into the Tahoe Basin, and talk to Sue Novosel, who's the District 5 Supervisor, so that they, once we have the results, to be able to show them the vast majority of the people that support not rezoning that property, so it's very clear to them what this message is. So that will happen through this committee, and we'll make sure they have all the supporting information they may ask for, so they have the ability to make a good, constructive decision based upon all those parameters available. So, okay, with that, we're going to move into the next section. This is talking more about the conceptual vision for the 98-acre park site, but before we do get to that portion of it, we wanted to cover the community needs assessment. There was 2 of them performed. One was performed by the Community Services District, as was referenced, and we'd like to show you what those results were in a summary format. And then also the Community and Economic Development Advisory Council of El Dorado Hills also did a survey. This was actually funded through the county, which had results on the same kind of thing, open space, recreational needs. So we want to make sure you see that. But in total, there was like 4,500 to 5,000 responses. That's not 1 or 2 people. That's a lot of voice in El Dorado Hills through 2 surveys. But we're not sure our supervisors are seeing that and understanding it, which is why this ballot measure, the advisory ballot measure, is so important, because once that vote's down, it's all over the county, and everybody knows that with a loud voice, this community is supported to vote no on Measure E, i.e., don't rezone it for the time being. And the time being means we want some time to be able to plan how that space should be used, but it can't be forever. If we can't get a decent plan put together, if we can't get the funding behind it, working with the CSD and other agencies, then I think we have to recognize that we can no longer just hold that as open space in the current condition in all likelihood. But that's something the county has to determine. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So with that, where did the clicker? Okay. And as we mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session after this. So with respect to the community needs, we have a large part of relatively flat land that's in the middle of our community. This is the 98-acre golf course. And we really need that to realize the vision for an El Dorado Hills Civic Center, recreational fields, community park, sports complex. You create the vision.
you create the dream. We put some ideas together, but part of the brainstorming session tonight is going to be pulling your ideas into it, putting it into a master plan, and then determining what we want for all of El Dorado Hills. And this 98-acre site is key to that whole process. So the current CSD park is a 40-acre park. The original plan for that park, for those of you who don't know the history of it, was to create an 80-acre park. That 80-acre park would have done a lot more for us in terms of longevity. We've outgrown the 40-acre park as the bottom line. But there was lawsuits proposed and other things, mitigations that were done. We ended up with a 40-acre park. It's a fantastic park site. It gets used every day, all the time. Great resource, but it's too small for this community, unfortunately. That's the bottom line. So in order to accommodate the 30,000 plus planned future residents of El Dorado Hills, that's associated with about 11,000 parcels within the El Dorado Hills area that have been approved to put in residential housing, combined with the fact that the county is looking at even increasing that to larger numbers to allow another 5,000 to 10,000 parcels to be built in El Dorado Hills. And when I say El Dorado Hills, I'm talking about the regional El Dorado Hills, not necessarily the community services district boundaries. So keep that in mind. But there's a lot more people coming to El Dorado Hills as currently planned and as the Board of Supervisors is looking to it. So we need to provide now the open space that can be turned into recreational, civic center kind of uses, or it won't be available to us in the future. This site is unique from the standpoint it's relatively flat. It's in the center of our community. It's the gateway to El Dorado Hills and into Serrano. I mean, it is in the absolute best place for these kinds of amenities to be built. So one of the things we did here is we took the Woodland Sports Complex, and for those of you that are not familiar with that, it's basically a major sports complex that the city of Woodland put together, and we did an overlay and say, well, how would that fit roughly in that particular 98-acre site? And you kind of see that in the lower corner. There's a lot more room for other things, so you could have a facility like that as a similar to, or a facility like something else. But this is just to get your minds thinking in terms of what is the vision for this property as we all work together to try to come up with that. So, moving right along, this was the CSD's Revenue Feasibility Survey results. This is what it was titled. The survey objectives were to evaluate the registered voters and property owners to support priorities regarding acquisition of the former executive golf course. So this was how do we acquire the golf course on behalf of the CSD's venue. Measure the level of support for local funding to acquire the former executive golf course and preserve as open space or develop into a community park. So we've always got that option, preserve as open space or develop. So that's the way that the CSD survey went out. It went to initial property and voter analysis, or the scope of the work, initial property and voter analysis, which is what the contractor did. It was a mail survey, approximately 8,000 surveys were mailed out. Samples pulled from the current property owners and registered voters. The findings and recommendations. Feasibility of a parcel tax was approved if it's less than $70. We'll get into some of the more specific numbers, but the CSD found that there was support for acquiring that land for a specific parcel tax. And I'll remind you, that's not the only opportunity for funding of this. There's a lot of grant monies and other things when we build this vision. And I really would like to see the El Dorado Hills Community Services District, the fire department, the county, the local groups, everybody who has an interest or owns property in El Dorado Hills to figure out how we do the best mix of facilities with the needs of the community and make it happen. That's what this is all about. Voter analysis, 15,788 parcels in the CSD district, and there's 22,400 registered voters. So the methodology they used, they sent out the surveys, they used 3 different annual assessment rates, $58, $79, and $98, just to see what level of impact the value of the assessment would be. There was 2,541 surveys that were returned by mail, and that was back in the March 30th last year time frame. 31.7% return rate and a margin of error of about 1.7%. So that is a representative sampling. For those of you who use statistics and look at sampling of numbers, that is representative of this community. So that's what's to keep in mind here. It was a good turnout, it was a good sampling. Here's what the overall support was by property type. For the single-family residential properties that returned the ballots, 85.4% of the total came from single-family residential, and they had the support rate shown on the right over there, the 69%. Apartment investment properties, etc. So if you go down to the bottom, you see the total is 100%, but if you look at the numbers in terms of support, there was easily close to 2/3 support across the board from all of the representative groups that responded to the survey. So that's impressive to me. If you're marginal at 50%, you kind of wonder, is this going to be questionable when it comes to a voter ballot, an initiative, or board of supervisors? When you get to 66%, generally 2/3, it's a pretty strong opinion. So, services and priorities, you can't read this, but the top two dealt with the park site and open space. What do you want to do in terms of open space, and what do you want in terms of park facilities? And that was a huge demand in this particular survey. So the summary of findings: the overall support is above the 66.67 threshold for rates of $58 and $79. So they show you the support rates there. So as the cost of the assessment goes up, the support rate goes down, as you might expect. There's people on fixed incomes and stuff that are willing to do something to help, but they're not able to do a higher amount of money. So that's pretty much what you would expect in that regard. Minimal price sensitivity. In particular, residents are concerned about slowing down development, reducing traffic, and preserving open space. That's the strong voice the community responded to this particular survey. That's what their primary concerns were. Slowing down development, reducing traffic, and preserving open space. I'm going to repeat that part. Comments received with the return surveys were recorded and included in the addendum of the report. So that report is available through our CSD if you want to see all of the specific information. This was a summary from that I thought was most important. But the recommendation that came back, the survey found sufficient support to continue looking at this at a rate of $68 per parcel was what they came up with. Continue to focus efforts on the top priorities of the community, preserving open space, improve going forward as funds become available and community needs are further identified, slow down development, reduce traffic. Those are the major findings. Continue to communicate to the district strong accountability and oversight of funds. Build a coalition of supporters. That's what this is all about. This is the next step in building the coalition. I know the CSD has had a lot of outreach programs, but Measure E takes it to that next level. It becomes very visible across the whole county, and that's what we think we need at this point. And then the last thing, the parcel tax collection is currently the best option available. And again, this was done over a year ago, so these numbers might change a little bit today, but I think there's more and more interest in this than even there was back in the March of 2014 timeframe. So that's the results from the CSD survey. So it gives you a pretty strong feeling that the community will support it, and they will support some level of funding for parks and recreation on that particular site. Now, the other survey that was done by the CDAC Eldorado Hills Community Group, and I was a part of that as well as about 10 other people. The survey results came from the county. The county hired a consultant to do it, so it wasn't arbitrary. It was very defined by the particular consultant. These are his charts that he came back with. The survey objective here was to better understand what community members view as priorities as it pertains to various aspects of Eldorado Hills. Participation on this one, 2,157 participants started and completed part of the survey. Another 1,814 participants completed the entire survey. So for some people that got into the survey and kind of lost interest and got tired, I guess, and they stopped. But again, good numbers, significant numbers in terms of the representation of a significant amount of the community. So land use and public space, which you see over on the right is the fact that it says need more open space and need more parks. So if you look at that, the numbers there, you got 60% on the one, you got about 58% on the other. So again, a majority of the people feel that we need to retain the open space and we need more parks. Then you look down at sufficient. There was a group of people that felt both of those were sufficient as presently defined, but the majority, the vast majority, still felt that we needed more open space and parks. Availability of specific land. And this got into where is the land available, and whether it's sufficient, need more, etc. And again, open space was something we needed more natural open space. We needed a lot less development. The same kind of things were echoed in this survey as was echoed in the CSD survey. To me, they run parallel with one another. And I'll bet you if you looked at who did the participation, it was a substantially different group of people that participated in both. But in any case, we can't determine that easily. Civic amenity, a community sports complex would be a good addition. Strongly support 35%, or strongly agreed 35%, agree 31%. So there you have a total of about 67% or more saying, we need a sports complex. This is what this community really needs, a significant sports complex above and beyond what we have in our 40-acre park site. So the summary, high-density housing is not favorable, but also do not want sprawl, desire for more commercial and appropriate areas, enjoy the open space, increase quality jobs and industry, road improvements as new development goes in, mindful of pedestrian and bike access, support for pedestrian and bike trail systems, and community sports complex. So this was the overall summary of the entire survey, which obviously covered a lot more than just the open space provisions and stuff, but I just pared this down to be specific to the Measure E category of items. So those were the two surveys. And now on to the fun stuff. What is the vision all about? One of the things that was recognized when we started this is that we need to really look at, I'm going to go back here a couple more, just jumped ahead on me. Go back one more. Okay. Now go there. Okay. What are the things that we think the community needs from the standpoint of visions? It's changing by itself. This is good. Somehow it's in automatic mode, so maybe I can go back to this. One device fails, you go to another one. So the old executive golf course could be used for various things like the civic center, sports field, senior activities, indoor aquatic center, fine arts theater, and symphony. Many of you may be aware of the fact that there was an interest in creating a fine arts theater in Marble Valley years ago. There was a foundation set up. I know Wayne Lowry, who was here in the audience tonight, he's on the CSD president. He was involved with that, as many other members of the community were, but those monies were never used to develop a fine arts theater. We're thinking this is the opportunity to make use of those funds, integrated in with this overall vision of what we can make El Dorado Hills in the future, looking at other communities and what they've been able to do. So that's part of this. Okay. So civic spaces, conference rooms, game rooms, exercise rooms, etc. This is kind of I don't know why I'm having so much fun with this, but let me go back here quickly. Game rooms, exercise rooms, sports equipment rooms, party rooms, general things that a civic center would contain. So any of you have visited communities that have a major civic center, and there's a lot of them around. There's a great one down in Southern California, Temecula, for instance, it's almost brand new. And again, you look at these communities, and they're not a lot bigger than we are. They're 45,000, 50,000, 55,000 people, and we're going to be 75, 80,000 people as a minimum when El Dorado Hills gets built out. So plan now, invest now, make it happen. Conceptual El Dorado Hills Civic Center, this is just kind of a layout, 4,263 square feet was what was planned there. And again, this can be expandable. Go back to that. Be expanded, so this is a certain scale from a specific facility that's been built, but again, there's a lot of facilities to take and create this vision from. So again, we want your ideas, if you know particular communities that have these kinds of facilities, let's look at them and see how we put together the best of the best and then integrate it into one site. Sports fields in your own backyard, softball, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, football, track, tennis, badminton, bocce ball, basketball, golf, you know, whatever, we can't put a golf course. That's one thing we probably can't. Maybe a little putting green. But anyway, so those are some of the ideas. This is a Woodland Sports Park, again, kind of at a blown up scale. This is a facility, it's actually over in Fort Bragg, California. If any of you know Fort Bragg, it's like 15,000 people. This complex cost them about, I think it was $14 million, but it's a 40,000 square foot state-of-the-art recreational fitness and aquatic complex on a 5-acre site. An abundance of water-related activities, etc. There's a leisure pool that features a 46-foot water slide and lazy river, which is great for exercising and stuff because you kind of fight upstream in the river and have a lot of fun with that. But it's also got an 8-lap pool and a diving board on the other side of it. So for any of you who have seen that facility, in my mind, for a community that small, it's a fantastic resource. It's a fantastic facility. Why can't we do the similar type of thing in El Dorado Hills? Again, use your visionary aspects, start dreaming, and figure out what really makes sense. Senior activities and sports, certainly, that can be included in this. And one of the things we want to emphasize is there has been presentations and newspaper articles about the senior center that's been proposed across the street from the fire station here. And there's certain of us that believe that the costs of building there are going to be high compared to building down a golf course, primarily because you got all the grading and all the retaining walls. This fire station cost a lot of money to put it here because of those same features, but this was the best location from the fire service from the standpoint of response time. So that's why the station is here. Central to Wilson, central to Boulevard, but it did cost a lot more money than other properties would, but this was in the right location. So moving the senior activities to a facility on flatter ground is gonna cost a lot more money to put into it. And then you integrate those with other facilities, you get better utilization. Now you have something that can be used maybe 14 to 18 hours a day between the early morning exercise programs, the late night activities that the kids want to have, you know, all those kinds of activities. So, going the wrong direction, I'll go this way. Centers for Performing Arts, we talked about this a little bit, the orchestra setup. At this point, there are no unreasonable ideas. I'll give you some examples. A driving range. Well, I really don't know why this thing keeps wanting to jump, but it does. So. Driving range, Future Farmers America, water ski park, zip line, I mean, there's a dream. Batting cages, mountain bike course, horse boarding, horse arena for clinics, disc golf, pickleball, smaller patio style households. Bring your ideas is what this is all about. So we are going to do some brainstorming and try to capture some of that. This is just a vision, and we want the community to get involved in helping shape that vision. Donate to our website if you get a chance. We have that up here. I have no idea why this wants to jump all the time. Anyway, parksnotparker.org. Keep informed through the website and through the next door neighborhood process. Volunteer to help. Visit our website. You know we had that. Email us. So you can email the website and provide some recommendations or suggestions as well. With that, I'll take any questions and answers while this thing jumps around and does a dance. So any questions on the visioning process and what we're trying to accomplish? Because we really want to make this the entire community that looks at what we can create in El Dorado Hills. Not just the CSD, but everywhere. So questions?
Well, you know what, I think I just saw Ron walk in the door. Maybe we could roll back a little bit.
Question was raised earlier about your position relative to Measure E. So you want to just speak briefly? Yeah.
This is important.
Thank you. Ron Mikulaco, Supervisor, District 1. Sorry for running a little late today. Tuesdays are our busiest days of the week, and I got down here. So the question is, where do I stand on Measure E? So Measure E is the ability for, and I think it's a useful tool for the community, you, the people that live here in Mass to communicate with me. And not only that, my colleagues. And I've talked to my colleagues about the fact that it's important that we hear from the community. This is a big deal here. It's Measure E is not about, my job is not to represent what I think, it's to represent what you want. I represent you in your voice. And Measure E is going to reflect that. I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I know how I would vote on it, but how I vote in confidence in my little booth when I vote, that's between me and my ballot. But I will tell you this, it's my job as your representative. I will be paying very close attention to the results of that. That I will tell you.
So can we count on you if the results favor no on E, that you will respect that and vote not to rezone?
Like I said, I will pay very close attention to the results.
No, that's not okay. I want a yes or no. That's not good enough, Meg. Come on.
If the majority vote no, will you vote no against rezoning the golf course? And the rest is a question.
You're asking me what I'm going to vote in 6 or 9 months down the road?
You just said you represent us.
Yes.
If we vote no by a majority, then you're saying you will support that vote.
Okay.
That's the question.
We have you on record for that.
If the vote is no, will you vote no against rezoning the open space?
That's right. I think I already answered that. I said I'm going to take close attention to what you're saying. You tell me what you want to do, and we'll deal with it. Listen, I'm here right now. You got my support. I supported the people on Wilson Estates. The people in the community did not want that rezoned to high-density residential. We supported them. They did not want the commercial rezone of the fast food restaurant at Green Valley Francisco Road. We supported that.
What about the golf
this
course?
board, as well as myself, have listened to the people, whether it was Sierra Cross or the people that live next to the commercial development, or the ones in most of the states. We've consistently listened to the people here.
Spanos Apartments?
I've been out there relentlessly.
Yeah, Spanish Apartments, how'd that go? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I couldn't have that one back.
So can we get your, time limit here, can we get your answer?
I'm gonna support you, what do you want me to say? You got my support.
That's
my answer. You have my support. You have my support.
Support that you will vote no.
You have my support. There you go, thank you. You have my support. Any other questions?
If 75% of people say no, they don't want rezoning, will you take that?
I think it'll be closer to 80 or 90 myself, talking to the people. I mean, I go out and talk to people all the
So
time.
you're gonna hold that and say, on behalf of our community, you will not vote for rezoning. You'll vote against rezoning at the board level.
It would be hard for me to support 10% of the population of this town. It would be extremely hard for me to do
That's
that.
not an answer, yes or
It is an
no.
answer.
Is there a threshold at which you would absolutely endorse what the people have voted and also vote against rezoning? So can you stipulate a threshold if it's 75% no?
There's no threshold.
Or 80 or 90%?
You know, listen, I'll be brief. Listen, here's the challenge, and there's a lot of challenges. First off, what is the vote? I don't even know what we're voting on. Okay, voting the rezone. The rezone comes with a plan. What is the project? Is it just a blanket, we're rezoning the thing? A lot of times we have applications that are submitted to the Planning Commission. Rick Stewart's our Planning Commissioner. That's who represents us. What comes out of the Planning Commission is a lot different than what goes in. It's like saying, you know, who do you want to win the Super Bowl next year? I don't even know who's playing in it next year, but I do know I want an NFC team to win. Okay, but my point is that if whether it's 51% or 89% of the people say we don't want it rezoned, it's very hard, whatever comes out of the back end of the Planning Commission, for me to support that. Because my job is to represent you. Okay.
And why don't you just say yes or no, Nick? If it's that simple, then if we all vote no, if majority
That's right.
votes no,
And thank you for that.
then will you just
And I'm gonna
say
support you.
yes or no? I don't understand why you have difficulty. We're all very frustrated here because you're not answering the question.
I think you sound, what you're saying is, you sound that you support what we're gonna say. What we're asking you is to tell us what you're going to say. What are you going to vote when that piece of paper comes in front of you? Are you going to stand in support of the community that has used its voice to tell you what we want?
Of course I am. I'm here right now. I'm going to support you.
Are you going to speak to the other board of supervisors and say to the other members, I need you to support me
Okay, so
against the rezone?
we have what's called the Brown Act. I cannot go out and have serial meetings with supervisors. I can go out and meet with one other supervisor and discuss,
One
say,
by
hey,
one. You can get
no, that's an unlawful act for me to go to each supervisor and try to lobby them for things. I'm not copping out. So
Waste all the time
now.
I think we got to get back to the meeting. We need
Go
to.
Yes. I think he's given his answer.
I've given my answer. I'm going to support you. Okay, I do not.
When you said that however it comes out of the planning department, you have to look at it, so that's qualifying it. We were asking you, yes or no, how do you feel? No rezoning is how we feel. That was the bottom line. When you qualified it, we said, well, how it comes out.
Well, what if we go to Measure E and it comes out and 43% don't want it? You want me to vote yes? Is that what you want me to do? You're saying that no matter how this, there's 37,500 people in District 1. There's about 1% of the population in this room. We don't know what the other 36,500 people are going to say. So if I say, I'll do whatever Measure E says, what if they say we want it rezoned? What if we like the project? Is that what you want me to do? What I said is I'm going to support what the people want. And my interactions with people is they don't want it rezoned. I don't believe that is what people want. That they want it rezoned, in my opinion, as a whole. Okay? So, last question.
How many letters have you gotten from people in your district asking you to not rezone? How many letters?
I'd say probably 40. At 40.
And how many? Have
Emails or letters?
Either way, both.
Combined, probably 60 or 70.
And then how many were in favor?
Not that many.
Any?
Not that many.
Any vote? Did you get a single one in favor of rezoning?
I can't say that.
I think we need to take the meeting back. The supervisor hopefully will be here when we finish this, to be able to answer questions, so he's gonna be here. So ask him your questions personally, and maybe he'll have something more to say, so. Okay, so we're gonna move into the next section, which is our brainstorming operation, what we're calling rapid capture. Jim's gonna kind of lead that, so what we've got is basically an easel with sheets of paper on it. We're gonna capture your ideas. No bad ideas. Everybody can come up with something, but if you have a real pet project you would like to see, we'd like to make sure that that gets on here. Even though we mentioned it before, if you really want to see an aquatic center, or you want to see, you know, a civic center, or you want to see some specific aspect of a recreational field, that's what we're trying to capture. So, Jim, here, turn it back over to you.
Well, in this brainstorming session, I don't know, have many of you been in a brainstorming sessions before? Yeah. Basically, what it's all about is we don't deliver, you know, we just state what we need to state. We need to state your question or your idea and not really elaborate on it. So it's like tossing me a ball, or I toss you a ball, and you toss it back. We'll summarize your idea down to something we can write on the board, and then we'll just keep going around the room to gather all of these ideas and thoughts. Yes?
I think it's a great idea, for a whole library. But it seems to me there's two separate projects. One project is to make sure it's not rezoned. And if that's successful, and if we have the money, and if we have the ideas, then the second project is where we want to build it.
Right.
I didn't understand the previous speaker's point that eventually it will have to be built on, it can never be enough to build the plan. So I think we're doing the second part of the project now, and I'm very, very optimistic the first part will make it.
You're absolutely correct, but if we didn't have a vision and we had nowhere to go, we just say vote no on E, then what do you have? So what's next? Everybody votes no on E, so what's next? So our idea is to provide something that we can rally around and perhaps start negotiating with the builders or whatever, just to try and make this thing happen. Questions? Go ahead. You have something?
I moved here from the Bay Area, from a community called Morgan Hill, which is a city in Santa Clara County, in the south of Santa Clara County. And while I lived there, the city of Morgan Hill built the Centennial Recreation Center, built a aquatic center.
Okay, we're on a brainstorming session here.
Well,
what's your point?
Well, my point is, I think instead of doing a brainstorming session, going back to this point, I think if this thing doesn't get rezoned, we should, and that's what the city of Morgan Hill did with the community. They built an economic plan,
let me speak.
You have to be
everybody
realistic.
in favor of a brainstorming session, raise your hand.
Well, I think it's important to capture that Morgan Hill has that facility, so we got to look at that. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, is collect ideas of where to go look, right?
So he's speaking about an aquatic facility, is that correct?
Yes.
Combination.
Among other things.
I just don't want it to get out of control here.
Well, I think really we were just sidebarring being involved with Tea Party and a bunch of things for a very long time in this community. I think right now, if I were saying what we should do, I don't understand why we don't have a neighborhood map up. I live in Waterford. Where do you live? Where do you live? Where do you live? Partnering up. We gotta vote no and get the word out.
Okay, well,
that's all that matters right now.
That's a good point, and that's.
And the rest can come in surveys or mailers or whatever, but like was very eloquently pointed out, there's probably 1/8% of the population in this room right now. That's not good.
No, that's true. I mean, this is a huge issue. There's a million things we can do, and now we've got your brains, you know, stirring and everything. I would like to pull it back to say, let's get the ideas out there, all kinds of ideas. I'm not holding back ideas. And if it happens to be ideas about how we distribute things, so on and so forth, let's get them up there. Yes.
Jim, it seems to me that you have already put together some very good ideas. Right? So if anybody has anything other than what's already been put up, maybe we can move it along.
That's what we're here for, is to add to the vision or take away from it. Just some ideas. I want to get a feel from the people in the room.
I happen to be an amateur astronomer, and I'm not the only one in this community. I'm sure there aren't too many in this room, but this community has pretty dark skies considering its proximity to Sacramento. And yet, if you look at sierraskiesobservatory.com, you'll see some incredible photographs that really aren't matched unless you're out in the Atacama Desert or up in the Sierra someplace. And my suggestion would be, I'm all for not rezoning, I'm all for sports facilities and all this, but I hope that we don't put lighted fields in. Okay. They're going to ruin the nighttime sky.
Okay, so
keep our dark skies.
Your last name must be Friday. There are a lot of people with you. Yes, sir.
I'll make it really easy. Community garden.
Community garden.
That's a great idea.
Can you write a little bit bigger? That's what I'm looking for. Maybe.
I think we need more ball fields, like a promontory, multi-use fields. Soccer fields, lacrosse fields, we need more fields in Eldorado Hills.
Right. Okay. We got the multi-fields.
And along with that, I would say bike paths and walking paths, where people can connect because we're working on the county level, but having more of those is always better.
Okay. You okay, Deborah?
You'll find that tennis courts were not on your vision.
Yes, sir.
For that community garden, I'd like to see it both handicap and developmentally disabled accessible. Lower planting beds for those who are visually impaired, flowers, plants that have a smell, aroma, whatever. But I think that should be incorporated into the plan.
EDA compliant, most everything we should, everything we should have should be ADA. What is it, ADA?
I think we need more dog parks.
What?
I think we need our dog park, a good dog
park.
Oh, that's a great idea. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah.
I don't want to go off topic. If you have a section later for talking about how we can help focus the effort, I will bring it up then, but other than, I don't, so if you have.
Well, we do have a half hour afterwards where we can talk about things like that.
Okay.
But if you have an idea, just.
My worry here is that this goes out and then people see it, and if things don't work out the way we want, people get the impression that they were promised an amenity, or well, instead of the golf course, we were gonna have a community garden. I don't want to get the cart before the horse here. I think there's a lot of stuff we have to do on the front end to as someone pointed out, it can't stay what it is forever. So it's not enough for us just to be against something. We have to be for something.
Right.
And I think the way we do that is you leverage all the existing community groups we have in this area within District 1 and District 2 to help get this message that you've created out there.
Just to say, part of our thinking here is that we talk about a community alliance that we haven't really spoke to now.
That's in the next steps part, when we get to that part.
Yeah, so we want to broaden this to not only ourselves, we want to include every village, 72 villages in Eldorado Hills. We want to have us all working together as a coalition, but that's another story right now. But if we can continue on getting these, I appreciate what you had to say.
Surfing wave pool.
Surfing wave pool. Yeah, apparently that makes a lot of money, so.
Revenue generating.
Right. Another question, another.
Water ski / wakeboard lake.
For the water that we have, the water we don't have.
Yeah, water we don't have.
We'll have some.
I really would say we do have an event center. I have 2 kids getting married, and I would say that we are having to go outside Eldorado Hills since we can't afford to go on a country club.
I envision the
And I would say that I would take a look at, my husband's a commercial contractor, I'm not doing a plug, but we just are on the second, we just finished one in Elk Grove. Now we're doing one in Granite Bay, it's called The Falls. They have very much wanted to come to El Dorado Hills, they have not been able to find the perfect land to build their event
Okay.
center. I have their blueprints, so
Okay.
you could look at it.
Got another, thank you, another Sharp.
I would like to see a beautiful park with walking trails and places to sit for people to sit and, you know, to talk to each other and just a beautiful park.
Kind of a
Okay,
get
it doesn't
together,
have to have a lot of
kind of like the
buildings.
village green that we have here in El Dorado.
Yeah, beautiful park.
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
The last question up there, funds. Talk to me, I mean, it's great to have all these ideas, but exactly what are we, all right, $70 a year parcel tax, 20 years, that would be to acquire the land? Is that to build this $10 or $15 million event center with all these rooms and games?
Well,
What about for the ball fields, for the water, for the electrical? How much is this going to cost?
Well, that's kind of after we figure out what we want to add and what we want to take apart and take
Well,
out.
but, you know, I mean, some of these ideas, I think, you know, wakeboarding and stuff like that, but these are not zip lines, you know, your liability just in building. I mean, these have to, I like to talk about money too.
Right.
We don't evaluate.
Right, you don't evaluate, you just let it flow, you don't question, you just let it go. And then you can come back later and say, well, that was real bad. Or whatever, but, so let's continue. Anything else that you think should be added?
Amphitheater. So for music, amphitheater.
Amphitheater.
It's very popular, hospitals are very popular.
Yeah, that to me is one of the big pluses.
I think you need to focus on teens. If you do something outdoors, you have a lot of people.
Right.
I think you need to focus on teenagers. I mean, millennials are the next thing that are coming into Alberta Hills.
Say that again, what?
Teenagers, we need to focus on more
Right.
things for teenagers, you know?
Okay.
They're so focused on drugs or whatever
Teenager
else is going on.
activities.
We need to have better activities for them to do
Okay.
instead of hanging out, getting
And-
more recreation.
Okay.
So
Jeff?
just building on that, you were saying with high density crack houses.
Jeff, you're great,
Actually, we're doing pretty well with it. So, any more additions that you'd like to, Lenny?
Just a suggestion, it really bothers me that we're talking about open space and then I see a civic center there. I want an open space park.
Right.
We could put a civic center somewhere else, hey, let's put it at town center if you want that, but open space and then I see a huge gigantic building, it's only 100 acres,
Well,
guys, we can't.
Let me just keep it open space. Let me just
No, not
say.
keep it open space, like a regional sports park, but I don't think it's a good place for a civic building.
Right, okay, that's fine, we're
No
judging
buildings.
it now, and that's not what we want to do. One of the things that keep in mind is that all of these suggestions may not end up in the golf course. There are plenty of other places that are more appropriate for certain activities, like horseback riding and things like that. But we as a community need to look at this from a logical standpoint. I would really love to have this, I would love to have this. And then, when we get together with the CSD and we sort out all the property, we may find places. You're shaking your head.
We're just putting the cart before the horse. We need to acquire the property and then we can have meetings about what we want on it. But we may not even have the property, so let's not put the cart before the horse.
Let's think about it this way. If you're trying to build a new house, you want to get all your amenities down in your brain and on paper first, and then you go look for the
But if you don't have
property.
your permit, you can't start building your house.
Well, that's true. Let's
So,
not
let's
argue.
get the permit
Let's
first.
not debate this. I just want to get the ideas out.
How about parks for kids? We've got enough ideas.
Okay.
Jeff, it was a golf course. It could be a golf course again.
Yeah, that's great.
Put down golf course.
The other thing I would also say is you can utilize the old golf course lakes, expand them, and you can have something, run your little motorized sailboat on, something to put a picnic table on.
A motorized sailboat.
Have a dancing event, a water feature.
Okay. I didn't want the brains to keep going. I figured we would peter out. So,
let's close down the brainstorming. I think we've had enough of this.
Okay.
Time to move on to the next part.
Okay, so now then, we've got all these great ideas, and we've got the accountants and everybody else figured out that this will never work because we can't afford it. But, okay, so are we ready to move on to the next, how to raise the funds? Everybody kind of focused on that? You know, there are a lot of ways, if we can get creative, there are a lot of ways to finance this. Some of it would be a partial tax, some of it would be if there's a coalition of people that really want a theater. I mean, I think there are plenty of people around that would be willing to support that. I had a meeting with Mansour just to kind of get his ideas of what's going on, and I think he would really support a symphony or a theater type thing. So I'm not speaking for him, but I just say that a lot of this stuff could be, Robert?
I'm just curious, because I thought I had just read recently the CSD has essentially abandoned its intention to purchase that parcel?
Only for a period of time. It was not at this time. And where's Terry?
What? I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Oh.
I thought CSD said we're not going to buy the golf course.
$24 million.
CSD was, after the appraisal came out, is a legal requirement that our attorneys contact Parker's attorneys and let them know that we were not, because of the result of the appraisal, we were not pursuing the golf course property at this time. The board made absolutely certain that at this time was included in the statement. We have released, therefore, a summary of the appraisal, not the full 161 appraisal, 661 page appraisal. And the reason why is because we still, with that 161 page appraisal that we still have, but we have not released it in full, we still have client attorney privilege, and we're hanging on to that. For the CSD's point of view, we've got to get to this vote. We've got to get the people out to this vote. This is what we need, is that some people have got to get out to the vote. CSD is going to take care of whatever kind of financing, we're going to be talking to partners, doing whatever we're going to be doing. But right now, we just have to get the people out to vote no on this thing in mass.
And show up the board of supervisors when they actually.
Okay, so is that satisfying, Robert?
What do you want to know?
Nothing, that's fine.
Well, getting back to the financing, we know, yes.
Well, one of the ways they're funded, this woman over here said she had a company that they're building a pool for it, is having a corporation come in, you give them the land or lease the land to them, and they put their facility on it. A splash park would be one of the things. They've got plenty of people that can build that, and they're the concessionaire, they make money from it, but it becomes part of the project, but they are the ones that pay for it.
Would you mind?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm in the wrong meeting. I thought we are voting to not rezone the golf course. All we're talking about now is building buildings on it for a symphony, for a civic center. I thought we are here because we want open space. Why are we just talking about buildings? I think we should talk about, and plus, I don't want to, I'm all for music. We have the Harris Center for Performing Arts right there on East Bidwell. If you talk about sustainability, if you build a building for a symphony, you have to also think about how do you sustain a symphony. A city like San Jose cannot sustain a symphony. How can we sustain a symphony? So I think we should talk about open space, because otherwise I'm in the wrong meeting. And we have to also talk about how we can sustain it. Now, when you go back to like the ballparks, and you cut me off earlier when I was trying to tell this, in Morgan Hill we did build 10 soccer fields and football fields and rugby fields and so on and so forth. And this was self-sustainable because actually in Santa Clara County there were not a lot of places where they had so many fields. And all the clubs are coming there, they do all the tournaments there, and it basically finances itself. So the cost for the city during the year is basically zero, because it's financed by the revenue that they generate from renting the fields out. I think that's the type of stuff that we should be thinking about, because it is open space, and it is sustainable. Putting buildings on there is not open space, and it's also not sustainable. I'm sorry.
Right, and I'm sorry I cut you off earlier. I was trying to focus on brainstorming and not have long discussions. The bottom line of what you're saying is that we released our brains here, and we're starting to get, unbiased ideas of what we can do for this. Maybe we're wrong. I don't know if the people in this room feel that these are things we want to do. Some of them are open space, some of them are not. But again, I would like to be able to get the ideas out on the table, sort them out, and then start passing judgment on, whether it's really good for this golf course or not. It's good to have this input, I think, so it's valuable.
But this whole argument is about open space, not about putting buildings on there.
And Park's not Parker, right? I mean.
Right.
Please explain who owns the land right now.
Wait a minute, go ahead.
We're new here, and we're in a similar situation. This is very confusing. Who owns the land, and how this community could affect what will be done on this land? If this proposition E is what the mechanism for this is, absolutely, this is the meeting, and we should go and campaign for that. After that, depending on ownership, Parkers, I've heard the name here, may not be allowed to develop this into residential area. And they will be negotiating with the rest of the community as well as businesses what next is going to happen. Why we're proposing anything here if this community doesn't own this land yet? I don't understand the process. Could you please
So I
explain?
think we need to go to the next steps and let's move on, because I think we've had enough dialogue.
Going on to what?
I have a question that follows up on this, and I agree.
Their buildings.
The question is, if we have a vision that shows community centers and symphony halls and all this kind of thing, a lot of buildings, isn't that undoing our own argument against Parker? We're asking for open space instead of rezoning certain houses. They're going to come back and say, if you're going to rezone for buildings, special use permits for buildings, what's the difference between houses? Buildings is going to be more difficult on the environment than houses.
But they also talked about it being, right now, I thought it was zoned as open space with recreational facilities.
I was going to speak to this in the next section.
Okay, go ahead.
John talked about that earlier.
I'm not, if you saw up earlier, this is a vision, this may not be the right vision, but let's, we're people getting together, arguing these various and sundry points, and I appreciate that. That's what we need to do. Maybe I miscalculated by having a brainstorm, and people came out with these different ideas. But what are people wanting? That's what we really want to find out. So, right.
Okay, can I really quick, just I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay, good. So the property is zoned recreational open space. There's a difference between a recreational open space and open space. Okay? If you have open space, you can't build ball fields, you can't build tennis courts, you can't do those things. Recreational open space, because it was a golf course, it allows for these uses. So what happens is, if, and to answer your question, Parker Development owns that property. It is private property. They own it. If we say no to your application, which is basically what we're doing, they're applying what they're doing. Parker Development has an application, which they have a legal right to do, to apply to do a targeted general plan amendment. What that means is we have a general plan. And in this general plan, this golf course is zoned recreational open space. They've applied to change that zoning. If we deny that and we say no, because this is discretionary, make no mistake, whether we do this or not do this, it's discretionary. And I have a discretionary vote, you're correct. I do have a vote on this, and I'm going to vote on this. But if we say no, what are our options? Here's your options right here. This is all that can be done. This is a recreational open space. It'll allow for dog parks, paths, putting greens, driving range, all those things. That's what's allowed. That is your default. Is Parker going to want to say, hey, well, you said no to my project, go ahead and build whatever you want? I don't think so. Probably not, but you have to ask him about that. I don't speak for him, but that's the difference between open space and recreational open space. We don't have much recreational open space in El Dorado Hills. Bass Lake Golf Course is zoned recreational open space. It's a golf course. There's some structures on there like a clubhouse, but that's why that accommodates, that works in continuity. So I hope I was able to explain what's happening here, and it's different than a lot of the other projects. So if there's any other questions about that, but I hope I was able to clarify what's happening, what the process is, and the process right now is that they've applied, we're going to an EIR, and I would suspect somewhere between January and May, it'll come before the Board of Supervisors, I believe, unless they pull the application. I mean, they may say, hey, you know what? We don't think it's going to pass. We'll just pull it and wait. We'll wait till after the election of 2016, or I don't know what they're going to do. But they have that option. They're not forced to do it. But if we deny it, if we say no, and it stays the way it is right now, there's your options. That's all that can occur there. Parks, tennis courts, mountain bike coursing, but it is private property, and we have to respect the rights of the fact that they paid money for that and they own it. Terry?
And the fact about that it's their property and they bought it as open space. And all I ever hear the opposition saying is, there's a voter-approved general plan. We've got to stick to the voter-approved general plan. Yeah, well, an amendment to the general plan is not sticking to the general plan. That's getting an exception from the general plan. So there is a general plan, there is zoning. So you have private property rights, and they can't build an industrial complex.
You're absolutely right. We have a general plan, but also along with the general plan, there's a process in place to allow people to make changes to it.
Right, and I'm just kind of stating to you as a supervisor that I think part of the issue is people talk about wanting to stick to the general plan. Okay. The argument that's yes on Measure E talks about sticking to the general plan, and a general plan amendment is not sticking to the general plan.
Changing your mind.
Great, thank you.
John, please start.
Okay. Thank you, John. So one of the things that everybody needs to recognize is the Community Services District is completing a master planning process as we speak. There's one slide in here that talks to that. It's been a year process. They will be completing that in January of next year, January 2016. That will be the time frame when we'll all get to see what is the result of the parks and recreational needs put into a master plan. So that is going to play into this quite a bit, in my opinion. The El Dorado Hills Fire Department has done a strategic plan in terms of the things that we believe we need to do from a fire service. But we also own 20 acres down in the business park that's only, right now, only about half of it is utilized for anything. And that could be used for lighted ball fields or something, maybe. Something to put it where it's not the night sky problem, right? It's in the evenings when there's not very much occupancy in the business park. It probably requires a special use permit. But what we're trying to do is get all of the great ideas for this entire community and figure out what goes where. The El Dorado County owns a regional park site up at Bass Lake. Nick is very familiar with that. My understanding is we're talking about selling that. But again, that's another asset that our taxpayer dollars paid for. And if we look at how we best use all of these assets that we have within the community and other things, then we get the right mix of things in the right places, and that's why we're trying to do the visioning to determine what extent, in terms of broad thinking, do people have an interest in. Then we can bring it together into a plan, we can prioritize it based upon those things that are cost effective, those that will pay for themselves because they involve things. One of the things that's been talked about is Olympic-sized pool, an indoor pool, an aquatic center. That will bring a lot of people into this community. That also creates an issue relative to traffic and other things, so you have to find the right site and properly plan for it. But that's what this is trying to get into in the next steps. With all of these things coming together, what the vote on Measure E means, the no vote, in my opinion, means give us some time to do our community plan. So I'll explain that a little bit too. So one thing before we move on, I want to recognize that there's a second town hall meeting that's been scheduled. And this will be a follow-on to further refine this and provide more details. It's on Tuesday, October the 13th. It'll be in the Community Services District Pavilion down on Harvard Boulevard. So we're hoping to have more definition of it. By that time, all of the ballots will have been received at the residences. The absentee ballots will be received, and you can start, they're supposed to be mailed out, my understanding, starting October 5th. So if there's people who have questions about the ballot measure still at that point, this town hall meeting will allow people to come and ask questions, and again, we'll refine some of the presentations you've seen before. So that's the first thing in terms of next steps. The second one I think is key to what we've been talking about is a culmination of all of the visioning, and that's the formation of what's now titled United Neighborhoods of El Dorado Hills. That concept is associated with the city of Orange, California, which has exactly that kind of a facility, a website that shows all those amenities. We are not ashamed to steal the best parts of whatever community exists to draw their ideas, to draw their amenities, to draw their features into what we're looking for El Dorado Hills. This would essentially be the second phase of what CDAC El Dorado Hills had talked about. When we talked about those presentations about a year ago from the survey, the primary part of that was focused on the targeted general plan amendment and zoning ordinance update the county was doing. The second phase, which we're now ready to start since the other is complete, is the community plan. And this is a basic, all of El Dorado Hills community plan. The county has a process for doing that, so we'll talk about that too as the third step here. So the best thing to do is go to this chart. This is the Community Services District master plan. It's on track for completion January of 16. A lot of the work's been done. The details are available, obviously, probably at the CSD website in terms of things that have been completed to date, but that is going to be the starting point for the rest of these activities. Is what is it the CSD has determined from their needs surveys, and I think a lot of people participated in that. What kind of facilities do you want? Bocce ball, I know, came out real high, a lot of other things. So they're looking at how do you integrate those amenities into the property that the CSD has and determine what additional property they may need. So that's long-range planning. But that's the first part of this. The second part is this community plan. And this is all under the guidance of the El Dorado County Long-Range Planning Department. On the left side, and I realize it's real hard to read, but this is what they call the roadmap to form a community plan. And there's various entry points and exit points along the way. But you go through a specific set of activities, provide that information to the county, they're working hand in hand with you to come up with this community plan. So this really is an umbrella that fits underneath the general plan the county has. So this is the way we put specific desires of our community as an umbrella to the general plan. So a lot of us that think that that's very important, particularly when we talk about traffic and some of the other things that go with having proper infrastructure in a community like El Dorado Hills. So that's the roadmap. Over on the right is the planning timeline, and the unfortunate part of that is they tell you it's 2+ years to do this planning. Now we believe that we've already started a lot of this, that probably we could shorten that down to maybe 18 months or something, but it takes a lot of work to try to make that all happen and get the county's buy-in and acceptance of it. But this would be the culmination of all of these discussions we've had, is a community plan that's adopted by the County Board of Supervisors. That's our stamp as to what we want to see El Dorado Hills be built out at when we have full population, full density, 90,000 people, whatever it may be. This is what we want to plan for our community. So this is our opportunity to do that. So these all play together in terms of coming together, and we think that this United Neighborhoods of El Dorado Hills is the way to do that, with representation across all the villages, all the organizations, all of the elected officials, special districts within our community, get everybody together working on this project so that we have a vision, we have a community plan, and we can get that approved at the county level. So that's what we're trying to ultimately end up with when you talk about what's next, which is part of the reason we did some of the visioning, to get a broader perspective of what people would like to see. So with that, are there any other questions anybody may have? Yeah, Lori.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, there was a lady over here that was speaking down. Did she?
Keep going.
Okay, and I think what she was trying to ask is, there's a lot of people from a lot of different villages throughout El Dorado Hills here tonight. And I thought she was trying to ask, how can we get together as, let's name who's from what village or what area of El Dorado, and let's talk about passing out flyers. Let's talk about some immediate action.
Right.
I mean, these are longer term
Correct.
goals, but I think she wanted to talk about things immediate.
So
We haven't done that.
well, we have, because
You may have, but we haven't.
Right, so from the past town hall meetings we collected input from people in terms of their names, their addresses. We identified what village they were from. We are now circulating and delivering flyers to about 5,000 designated people who are high propensity voters, to make sure that we make the most use of that 5,000 set of flyers. So a lot of them have been distributed, and both Jim and Wayne have been working on this, as I have, getting people, representatives from each village, to agree to walk the village, to hand those flyers out. There's a little talking point sheet that goes with it. Thanks to Anita for putting that together. but it's a way of working your local neighborhood or a part of it and stuff and communicating. So that's all started, and again, with the names we've captured tonight, and I think, Chris, we've got all the names in the village like we did before. So we have that information to go through and say, where do we still need help? Let's contact this particular person and see if they would be willing to help. We can always use more help, but we have started that process, recognizing a short timeline to get through the election. So the signs have gone up on the boulevards. We got neighborhood signs, yard signs available. So
we probably need to talk about that a little more. It's like, if anyone's here that hasn't signed up and would like to start passing out flyers or put a sign on their front lawn, you know, no on eating, those are available tonight, right?
yes, absolutely.
So
The flyers are available too?
There was a number of flyers brought down. I know Wayne has.
I think we need to coordinate a little bit with Wayne, because I don't know how many they have left.
Okay,
We
so
can take your name and phone number for sure.
So let me ask one thing, and that is if you have a specific interest in distributing flyers within your community, please see Chris in the back and make sure we get your name highlighted. Contact me to distribute flyers, because I think we've got about 75% of the villages covered right now, but we can always use more help and maybe break it into 2 groups or something like that. So for people who would really like to help us in that way, that would be a big help. The biggest way people can help us is with a donation, because to be perfectly honest, that's where the buck stops in terms of printing signs and getting things distributed. And if we have a few more resources, we can do a better job right before the voting participation occurs, or voting activity occurs. So, yeah, Ray.
Do you have a website for United Neighborhoods of Waterford?
We haven't started that yet, but that's one of the next things we're going to start. United Neighborhoods of El Dorado Hills is what we're thinking of calling it. And that has not been initiated, but that is the future plan.
So I think that what you might be asking too is that once it gets established, that they take your email address and send you the link. You like that?
Well, yeah, just to...
Right, so what we would probably do is have a kickoff meeting. We'll schedule here something, invite everyone who would like to participate, but make sure we send out specific invitations to the CSD Board of Directors, Fire Department Board of Directors, our supervisor, the people who've been involved with community activities to a significant extent in the past, so we get all of that coalition together and start building it with every village hopefully represented and every voice heard at some level. So that's the ultimate objective.
I heard about this meeting from, through next door Murray Hill. My neighbor, previously, I moved up here about 10 months ago. I was in San Francisco, and next door, all the neighbors in San Francisco, you have your own community, but then you have, it was a way to get out information about floods, broken sewer mains, meetings like this. And I think if you can get people to look at next door, sign up for next door, and if you have next door, El Dorado Hills in general, but it's Murray Hill, but it's also 15 other next door neighborhoods, Serrano, all the other ones, Fairfield Village. It's
exactly.
A really
We have
a
member of our committee that's been working on that, has contacted the next door regional operations to tie the neighborhoods together and stuff. So John Marino has kind of led that with a number of other people. So we are doing exactly that, because that is a great communication method. And you can put out broadcasts to large sections of people, or just send it within your local community and those kind. So, for instance, the community I live in is Lake Hills Estates. We're trying to get that set up through our Lake Hills Fire State Council. So if we find other villages that are interested in doing that, we certainly know how to go about it, and we'd be willing to facilitate. So again, if you have an interest in setting up next door within the village you represent, see Chris and have her circle that you're interested in next door. We'll send you the information and love to get you started on that, because that is a good way to communicate locally of the things of interest to all of us. So,
by the way, this meeting has been videoed, and we'll put it out on YouTube and send you a link.
okay, so if there's no more questions, I think we've kind of finished that portion. I think Greg Prada was going to talk next before we get into the general Q&A and comments. So, Greg, and Greg is our EID director, or one of our EID directors. So, yeah.
I'd like to talk about a couple things that have some synergy with Parks, not Parker. But first of all, I was reading the argument against Measure 8. Paragraph 6 says, changing the general plan with, amongst other things, undercutting the general plan will severely damage the county's ability to protect our local water rights, driving up water rates for El Dorado Hills residents. That is an utter crock. That is an utter crock. And if you see who the lead person is that wrote that, that person happens to have a very tight connection to Kirk Moen and Parker Development. When you read these things, first of all, on the argument 4, it's really phenomenal that the political leaders in El Dorado Hills have lined up against for Measure E. The people lined up with Parker Development, and by the way, Parker Development really controls a lot of things politically in this county because they throw a lot of money into various elections. So, you know, you have to consider the source as to who's writing that kind of thing. But what I really had intended to chat about was two things. Number one, I want to brief you all tonight on a scheduled October 14th by the EDWAPA, that's the El Dorado County Water and Power Authority Board, to partner with the city of Folsom to help Folsom obtain water security for 10,800 new homes south of 50. The EDWAPA board is comprised of the 5 board of supervisors and the 5 EID directors, which, by the way, to accept 140% increase. He's already lobbying for more. So in any event, that vote is up, and I encourage, I hope that there'll be some folks that might show up and chat with us as we sit up on the podium and actually consider that issue. That's at 2890 Mosquito Road. And the other thing I wanted to throw into this, I mentioned political contributions. You should always watch who are your elected officials getting money from. Because when you see that Parker Development has put in $100,000 in a school board race, or $110,000 into 2 EID board seats, or $1 million on Measure M, you can tell they're doing that because Marble Valley is like a $4 billion project. So this is chump change that they put in, but they get cozy with politicians, they get cozy with staff at county and at EID. And that's one of the things I think, as I listened to the conversation early on tonight, that the general public just has no awareness of how things really are driven. You have a very powerful voice. Even 10 people showing up and storming the Bastille, if you would, had some impact, because we've had that occur at EID. This room here, by the way, has some really interesting memories for me, because back in January 2010, this room was packed. All the shades were up because there were people outside with signs banging on the window. And what was that all about? That was because EID announced, hey, we're going to raise rates 80%. Well, boy, I tell you, that we got some pushback from that. So anyway, the most powerful thing you have on anything in county government, whether it's the vote on this, whether it's vote on what's happening on water rights, and votes on capital spending and more rate hikes, if you get some folks together and come in and raise a little hell, you'll definitely put pressure. You may not win on that thing, but you'll definitely put pressure. I personally think that the biggest thing that this project needs to do is really put more of that kind of publicity that we heard about coming in today about Channel 3 and so forth. That makes those folks really uncomfortable. And when you make them uncomfortable, they put their foot in their mouth and they make things worse than themselves. So anyway, I wanted to leave you with those thoughts, and thank you for indulging me.
So I'm Darwin Throne. I've been involved with Parker, and I've been pretty involved with EID. I think I went to just about every board meeting last year for about 8 months. And I'm kind of here to support both, but I would like to make just a point about EID. Deals are done in that boardroom, and if you're not there representing your interests to the people on that dais, you're going to lose out. If you look at the small farm rate issue, where they pay $49 per acre foot per marginal acre foot, you pay $850. They were there in mass. I mean, there are probably 100 people in the room. Yeah, how many were there?
Pardon me for interrupting. Folks here, residential people, pay $1,300.
Oh, $1,300. Yeah, per acre foot.
It's a bit of a
versus 49 on a marginal basis. Sorry, it's been a while since I looked at the numbers. Anyway, if you want to get information on this, sign up. There's a sign-up sheet back there. And as these issues come up on the agendas for EID, we'll send it out to you. You can try and come to the meeting, and that's really the way you put pressure on the other directors. Our director, Alan Day, and Greg from District 2, I guess it is. Anyway, they've been holding the line for the last 18 months, and it has been vicious. I was at the meetings. It's been vicious. They need help. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're back to the general Q&A. So if you had any questions that didn't get answered, the team can go ahead and respond to those. If you have any other ideas or thoughts that didn't get mentioned about how to better communicate, how to make this more public. One of the things we've talked about with respect to Channel 3 News is contacting them right before the ballots get delivered to the homes and see if we can't get a follow-on with our Parks Not Parker group as opposed to just an arbitrary thing. So anyway, that's part of the planned activities. But I think our supervisor would like to say something, so we'll give him a couple minutes.
Silver Valley Interchange, if you notice the overcrossing's been open, we're trying to get the on-ramps, we're going to have a big opening for that, that's going to help. Along with that, and if you tell me live in Serrano, and deal with the Entrada, Village Green issue, one of the pieces that we're trying to work on that I've been very adamant about is connecting Country Club Road. And along with connecting Country Club Road is connecting what's called Russie Ranch Road, okay? When they designed Serrano, Russie Ranch was designed to be a collector. And the general plan has Country Club connecting to Silver Valley Parkway. As this goes forward, I suspect we might see some applications come forward. The connection of Russie Ranch to Country Club is key in the whole grand scheme of things. It'll help deal with the Entrada. Along with that, the connection of down here at Saratoga Avenue to Iron Point is going to connect. On the county line, where Green Valley crosses underneath the dam, it narrows it to 2 lanes. That's going to be widened to 4-lane roads. If anyone's seen road work going on in Green Valley Road between Francisco, El Dorado Hills Boulevard, and Silva Valley, what's happening there is we're doing a project to connect those lights with the wire for timing, for connectivity, so traffic flows through. Okay, the timing of those lights are all connected.
What about Bass Lake Road?
Great question, because Bass Lake Road, okay, now the issue with Bass Lake Road is unlike Green Valley Road, the county only owns to the edges of pavement. It was a little meandering 2-lane country road. It was never given any thought that we need to widen it, but we are going to overlay Bass Lake Road. We're going to put a new surface on that. We are also dealing with connecting Bass Lake on Silver Springs. Eventually, we're working through that there. That'll help with Bass Lake Road. I think that what you'll see Serrano Parkway to Green Valley? No, Silver Springs to Bass Lake to Green Valley via with that new road by the school right there. That's going to connect through eventually at some point in time. We're going to overlay Bass Lake Road. John mentioned the county owns some property. There's actually the school district that wants to sell the road there. Along with that, the right turn pocket is done over here. That's completed. Eventually down the road, we are going to widen El Dorado Hills Boulevard from 4 lanes down
Are
the...
you going to do any air quality control and surveys for the schools that are there, at Oak Meadow, at the big interchange coming off? Not only did they grade all and they create a dust bath for these kids, but also the fumes and the traffic going right by the school.
So-
how is that
we have, absolutely, and part of that process was AQMD, which is the Air Quality Management District, has been dealing with the dust over there. We've been doing monitoring for that. What's crazy,
So let's not, let's just turn into a meeting.
Hang on. So, but we are, you got it. So along with that, we are putting some transportation dollars together there. Bass Lake Project, connection of Rusi Ranch Road. Silver Valley Parkway is going to open. I think it's something out here, or a few other things here. But anyways, I just want to give you an update on that. Silver Valley should be open. You're going to notice a big difference on Serrano Parkway and Bass Lake. And if you get on Highway 50 in the morning at El Dorado Hills Boulevard, your commute time will be a lot less. John, thank you very much. Mr. Pridemore, thank you very much. And you know what? Thank you, because I go to a lot of meetings and not many people are there. This was a full house, and I want to give you an applause. Thank you.
Very good. So back to questions and answers. We got one back here?
Yeah, so back to Measure E then.
Yes.
So somebody had made reference to EIR, which I imagine is an environmental impact report. For those of us who have been here for 15 years or so, early 2000s, there was a big issue relative to asbestos in that area.
Yep.
Would that asbestos issue be addressed in that EIR?
It will be. The draft version is not available, but it has to be because that's been recognized as known fact. Now, how extensively it is, that's the question, right? They will probably not go to the depth of analysis that some people would like, but that's why you come and comment on that draft EIR and say it's insufficient because they need to really look at excavation of the soils and what happens, and what's the content, et cetera, et cetera. So they have to address it, but they don't necessarily have to go to a lot of depth in the analysis. But the draft EIR on what they're calling Central El Dorado Hills Specific Plan, which is the Parker project, includes a 90-acre golf course, includes the property on the other side of the fire station here, where the senior center was proposed, or the center for the ages was proposed. That is supposed to be released October 15th, is the best I've gotten from the planners. In the middle of October, there's a nominal 60-day response time, and then sometimes that gets extended because if the EIR is a 300-page document or something, a lot of agencies will ask for additional time because it's just an awful lot to get it through it even to 60 days. So then it will come back presumably to the Planning Commission, as Mick mentioned, for the Planning Commission to review it and determine what their recommendations are, and then it will go to the Board of Supervisors unless Parker slows it down or does something to change it. So that's the basic process with respect to that EIR process and the specific plan.
Okay.
Okay, up here.
I've talked to a couple of neighbors about this situation, and they're totally clueless about what's happening. How are we going to get the word out?
Well, the flyers are one of the ways we're trying to do that, to distribute to people, but we're hoping more word of mouth, more communication with your neighbors and people you know and stuff to try to get that information. Nextdoor is one of the tools we've used. We've got a Twitter account, we use the website. I mean, I think there's a Facebook account, so we're trying to use all of that social media as a contact mechanism as well as the old hand flyers at the doorstep technique. So beyond that, I don't know what you do.
Was there a program for traditional media as well? So either the Sacramento Bee, television station, KFPK,
right.
That's included.
Right, so we've got that included. That's planned as part of our communications plan to get the media involved. These meetings were supposed to be noticed in the Mountain Democrat and the Village Life. I've been gone for a little while, so I wasn't sure if they actually got noticed, but we'll continue with that, right? Probably need to get the Sacramento Bee in for a feature article. That would help. That's a good idea. Any other questions or comments at this point? I think we're about done. So thank you very much again for your attendance. I really appreciate you hanging in, and thank you.